Sarah Godlewski appearing with Green Bay Mayor Eric Genrich at an abortion rights news conference. Governor Evers appointed Godlewski to the office after 82-year-old Doug LaFollette retired over the weekend. LaFollette, a Democrat, just won a close election in November to stay in the office that he's held for 4 decades. Godlewski will now serve out the remainder of his 4-year term. And we are joined now by our friend of show, former colleague here at WBAY, Matt Smith of WISN TV, the executive producer and host of Upfront. You can see that Sunday mornings here at 10 a.m. So, Matt, among the lawmakers that you have spoken to since this happened, what's their reaction been to this?
So, Chris, as with everything, right, there's a Democrat and Republican divide among this issue. Republicans are pretty upset by what they're accusing the governor and Democrats of pre-planning this, right? Like the election just happened in November. Democrats don't seem to have an issue with what has transpired, and Republicans are looking to at least put some pressure on the governor to call a special election as opposed to just upholding this appointment, which is essentially a 4-year term because we're, just about 3 months in to this new term.
All right, so you mentioned there that special election, Senate Majority Leader Devin Lemmy called for that immediately. It's been officially requested now by the state Senate. Does this have any chance of happening?
Yeah, no, probably not. I mean, listen, this is non-binding, so there is no authority. It's the legislature, the Republican-controlled legislature, looking to send a message and get on the record with this. The state Senate voting on this today. The Assembly will take it up in a couple of days. But the governor made the appointment, and he stood that by appointment this past week. There was a news conference earlier this week where he faced numerous questions. He said, listen, when I was elected governor and I appointed the Secretary of Education, which replaced me, there was no concern. There was no problems, and all of a sudden there seems to be issues here. He said this was not pre-planned. Doug LaFollette came to him last week and said, I'm resigning. That then set the wheels in motion. The reason this is gaining traction and controversy is because of Sarah Godlewski, a former Democratic candidate for Senate, and Democrats see as a rising star in the party and someone who may run for something again down the road.
All right. Let's talk about her for a second, because here's what she said when she was given the job by the governor. Quote, I know how important this role is and my responsibilities are, and I'm looking forward to getting to work, end quote. But this position doesn't seem to have a whole lot of power. In fact, this is the official job description of the Secretary of State. The Wisconsin Office of Secretary of State maintains the official acts of the legislature and governor, keeps the Great Seal of the state of Wisconsin, and affixes it to all official acts of the governor as required by the Wisconsin Constitution. There are some other minor things there as well. But could this be seen, Matt, this move, while the Republicans think this was all planned out, is this perhaps the start of trying to change the responsibilities of this office, which would require, I believe, further legislation?
Right. And so, listen, this was the debate that was had in November going forward. And you're right. When you look at the position itself, Republicans essentially have eliminated all responsibility from the Secretary of State's office over years. It is literally in the basement of the state capitol, a small office, very little staff. Unlike other states, there is no authority over elections or no involvement in the state's elections like there are in other states. Amy Loudenbeck, the Republican who ran in November, was looking to restore some responsibility to the Secretary of State's office, perhaps including some election work. But now that another Democrat is in this office, it's highly unlikely that the Republican-controlled legislature is going to give a Democrat more power in the Capitol.
Matt, it's interesting that you said that, because that office has not done anything with elections in the state since 1974. Maybe that's an end game here if things change, because we know that the Wisconsin Elections Commission was certainly, while not technically on the ballot in November, it may have been on the ballot in November. Let's go back to that, because after the election, there were signs that there might be some thawing between the governor's office and the GOP-controlled state legislature. Is this another indication that that is really far off the map at this point?
It is, yes, because I think Democrats perhaps knew the reaction this was going to get, maybe a little surprise coming from the governor's office. But when you look big picture at this overall relationship that we talk about between Republican leaders and the governor's office, you have to look to the state budget negotiations that are ongoing and what's going to really happen over the next couple months. because the goal here is for Republicans to craft a budget that the governor will sign. And the big question mark is whether those conversations are really going to happen and whether there is going to be any sort of compromise on this state budget, notwithstanding all these other issues, these political issues that arise between now and this summer.
So let me ask you, do you think any acrimony about this decision with Secretary of State could hinder those discussions that need to be happening?
Broadly, no. I mean, listen, I think Democrats and Republicans say a lot in front of the cameras. And sometimes the compromise that we're seeing behind the cameras doesn't come out in play necessarily right away. So you have this public position and you have this private position. And
Right.
sometimes they don't totally jive.
Terrific. Matt, thanks so much for your analysis. We'll see you on Sunday mornings up front, 10 a.m. right here on WPAY.
Great to see you.